But yeah, you'll have problems with a lot of things if you use Internet Explorer. So who's never done this class and has no idea how to do closing costs for a buyer?
Just kidding.
Yeah. Joy could almost teach this class. And Anne Marie. So wait, raise your hands again. Okay, so you've never gone over them, you don't know how to do them,
No.
which nobody does when they start, so don't
Yeah.
be embarrassed. Say your names for the other people. Well, I think everybody should say their name because there's probably people in here that don't know each other. We'll start in the back.
Me? I'm Marnie Oswald. Carol.
Debbie Drzdowski.
John English.
Joy Pearson. Henry Mullen.
Scott Allen.
Christina Wiedenhafer.
Joanne Edwards. Janelle Nye.
Tracy Berard.
Lisa Longenbach. Who's that way back there?
Oh, Sharon Grimshine.
There you go. Everybody knows who everybody is. So I'm going to assume
Along with
that
Dave Hartnett is joining
Yeah,
us.
we're here, you guys start now.
And Carolyn Overholter.
Chanel Simon.
Yes.
I'm going to assume that you newer people at least have navigated through trend. Okay, so you've played around. All right. So it's not a trend class, it's just a closing cost class. But so you have your toolbar at the top. I'm just going to go and assume that you don't know where it is. So finance statistics, which makes sense. So buyer closing costs. And it takes you to that section. Now, I'm not a fan of going in this way. I actually like to go in through a property. But you still can do it this way. You can search. So give me an address of a listing.
752 Durham Road.
Is this a real listing?
Yeah.
I mean, like, is it a real house? Like,
No, it's a real house. It's
What's
a
the name?
what town?
Wrightstown. Wilmington, really.
Oh gosh, it's like I can't type this one.
Just blame it on the keyboard.
Okay,
I always
so
do.
if it can find the address, this is another way to do it. I will tell you, if you don't have an address, this system does not like you not having an address at all. Like, where I find is the most difficult is when you're doing new construction, because often that address doesn't exist in the MLS. So in that case, what I do is find a property that's similarly priced, similar taxes to what I'm either being told the taxes are supposed to be, or I figured out myself what the taxes are supposed to be, and I do it that way. Like I think I sold one in Saddlebrook in Ben Salem. Well, that address doesn't exist in the MLS, so you kind of, like, they do closing costs, but I tend to want to do it myself. And we were going through a lot of scenarios, so I had some, it was actually a single home that I added an association for. But it really doesn't like it when, because what it doesn't like is that you don't have this. And when you try to make it up, it doesn't play nice. So all right, so we're selling this Durham Road to Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. You don't have to put a name, I just like to. So a lot of this it auto-fills. So we've got the sale price, which that's what they're asking. That may not be what you do your numbers on, but for this point we will. It's not going to fill in any of these things until you have a date. So you can start filling in like, oh, they told me it was a 4% interest rate. It's 20% down conventional, it's fixed rate. You can start putting it, well, they're not paying PMI. No, that's, oh, see, it doesn't even put in the transfer tax. Once you put a date in, so now we're going to settle this June 24th. So now things are going to start to populate. So this autofills, there's no reason to change it. We're not asking for seller assist in this case. I also don't put earnest money deposit on here unless I'm before closing and I'm trying to do like their last numbers. I do not know how to make these go to unpaid, but they should be unpaid. I don't leave anything as prepaid. Homeowners, you're going to put in a number 480, what was it, 489? Yeah, I'm going to use $1,500 a year. And these, I've changed these to default, so if you were looking at your own one, it would be different. I have changed, and I'll go into that section where to change them, only because I don't think they're high enough, what Trend puts in there. If they were paying points, it would be here. Most likely, buyers are not paying points at this point, but if they were, I would make it unpaid. The first point is always an origination fee. Any points after that are considered the discount points. It honestly doesn't matter, it's still gonna calculate to be the same number. You're not mortgage people, don't feel like you have to know it. I'm just telling you that because if you hear those terms, they're very loosely used, so. We'll get back into that as rates start to go up, but for now, you probably won't be paying any. So we'll leave that. And again, it fills these in. If your buyers are not married, then I would double this. If they are married, you can leave it as 50 for credit report, but it's generally they pay for 2 when they're not married. Doc prep, underwriting, flood cert, tax escrow. Again, I've upped these numbers just to kind of buffer my costs. You can ask the mortgage person what their numbers are, and when I explain it to them, I tell them these aren't actual, like whoever, we're not doing a loan application. My job is to give them an estimate of their closing costs. I don't like to rely on somebody else to do it for me. Transfer tax will default in Bucks County to 1%, and it should default to 2% in Philadelphia if you're selling a Philadelphia property. Just know that it is different when you're in Philly. Recording the deed and mortgage, I've upped those numbers too. Notary fee, commission paid by buyer, that is that flat fee commission, so it's whatever you charge. I put in $1,500 for insurance. Again, it's unpaid, because today when I'm doing these closing costs, nothing has been paid. So I don't like it to show up as paid at a closing. Same with home inspection. They didn't pay it. We're sitting here doing the numbers now. I'm probably at pre-approval. So I make them all unpaid, because at this very time they didn't. And I've defaulted to have these show up here. I don't know that they show up if anything shows up. This does not have an association, correct?
No.
Now, often when it does, some of that will default over to here, but the information's only as good as what's in the MLS. So if that listing says capital contribution, which I guess would be this capitalization funding amount, is 500, it may default over there. It depends if they put it in the right spot. If their monthly association is 100, it should show up in there. But again, you want to be careful to make sure that they show up. Here's that enhanced sale under title. I would not change it. I think the last time I did this, we talked about it, changing it, but now that they're going to go up 12% in May for title insurance.
The 12% is an average across the board, so you're talking from $1 of insurance to millions of dollars. So, it's not a straight 12% increase. So, I just actually was sitting here doing some math on the low, up to 450,000, the increase is 14% and change. As you go up at higher in sale price, the premium increases, it does, but the percentage of increase is so small because the premium amounts are different. Like on a $75,000 house, it's just a round number, premium goes from $762.50 to $874, which is a 14% increase. But
Well,
if
on
you
a
get it-
489.9 as a house, how much is it?
489.9.
How much would it be? 49 even,
It's $32.48. So what does that have in there?
3129.50.
So that's your 10% over. So then you need an extra like 5%. I don't know when Trent is going to update this.
Yeah.
So
Now I'm not sure if this will allow you to change it. So what did you say it was?
you said 489.9, right?
It's 49 even.
Wait, tell me again.
489.
Even. 32, 42, 30.
All right, well, I would not do that. So it is taking that number. So the hard part is how are we gonna know that number? You're gonna put a chart out, right?
The charts are all by the floor desks. They're on
Okay.
the Facebook site. I can probably have the front desk email them to the whole place. The thing is, and I have rate cards being delivered, the old school, like Lisa, you probably know.
Yeah,
Rate
Jack
cards
still
used
uses
to be
it.
trifold, little like pocket things that you could pull out. I have them on order from the underwriter, they're just not here yet. As
Yeah,
of right now, this is my rate chart. So that's what's on Facebook, and what you do is you go to your sale price, it's all broken down by the thousand. And the premium, I mean, as it is now, that's not any different, the premium increases per $1,000. So that's what I was saying, the 12% increase is the average amount of the increase. On the lower scale, and I don't mean lower, I mean up to $500,000, you're looking at a 14% increase. But on a $3 million property, your increase may only be a 7%. I didn't do the math, but I'm just saying, the higher the dollar, your premium is already so high, they didn't raise it so much more. Does that make sense? And that's all calculation of, I couldn't tell you what the math is, I'm just, I can't register that, I go by the charts. But there is a formula to it, so that's just how the rates go up. But the enhanced up there already sets you 10% ahead, which is good. You're, call it around 5% off.
right.
So I don't know, like per Lisa, you could just edit that, but you have to know to edit.
We'll see if
you know
that,
what I mean?
yeah, I mean, I would say edit.
Yeah.
I would say if you don't have the chart in front of you, add $100 to
Right.
the enhanced sale, but realize, 32.43, I gotta remember that. So sale, if you switched it to sale, which is what I think I said you could do the last time I taught this, don't do that, because that's gonna bite you, because now it's gonna be, because sale and enhanced sale, which I've never sold an enhanced sale,
We don't really sell.
so I was kinda like, why is that defaulting to that? And then my thought was, you know what, it's a buffer, awesome.
Yeah,
Always go for the buffer. But the sale is so much less, the enhanced sale, at least you're closer. And then know that you can now look at the chart, grab a chart after, and
yeah, add
change
$100.
change the number. And it seems to be letting you. We'll see what it does when I do the totals. I was actually thinking in my head you could also add endorsements, but it doesn't really give you a spot to do that. So these endorsements, since we have Beth here as our title expert, what do the endorsements stand for?
Which, I can't really.
So there's 100, 300, 900. On a normal sale, these are the ones you pay when your normal buyer is getting a mortgage and buying a house. So the 100 is.
They're all lender required endorsements of the title policy. It has to do with, one is environmental issues, one has to do with a survey, and off the top of my head, I can't remember what the other is, it's so boilerplate. But they're all things that the lender requires to be issued with their title insurance policy as an additional protection to the lender.
Yeah, it really doesn't do anything for your buyer.
Doesn't do anything for the buyers, no.
Now, when I change this, I'm going to change this to an arm, just for a moment.
Yeah, does it?
Now it adds another endorsement.
Oh, that's good.
710. So it does add them. And then at the other flip side is if it was a condo, where's my condo spot? It adds a fifth one. So if I change this to yes, I believe it adds, yeah,
Yeah,
80 to 810, whatever.
that's great.
So it does kind of know that for you, but
What's the closing protection letter in for? Cause that's 125.
that doesn't show up on here.
Oh.
So it's a good question, but when you say lender, you mean the lender of the title insurance or the mortgage?
Mortgage.
Okay.
The buyer's mortgage company.
Right.
Like a buyer paying
So
cash,
you do cash and you don't have the.
Exactly, yep.
let me just change it to cash real quick. We don't, do well, then it wouldn't be an arm. So that whole side gets wiped out. Nice.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
I love cash.
But notice how all the endorsements went away. The only one that cares that you get title insurance is the mortgage company. We don't care, title doesn't care. I actually had a buyer years ago who was putting gobs of money down on a house, but he was getting a mortgage, and he decided he wanted only the lender's title. He didn't want his policy. Like, he didn't want to cover his equity, which I thought was insane. I actually made Steve talk to him numerous times, I felt bad, and have him sign something that he understood what he was doing.
Yeah,
His thought was, well, the guy's been there forever, and I'm like, okay, whatever.
Exactly the
But you're
problem.
not protecting your interest.
Exactly.
He was an idiot, but, he knew everything, so that was fine.
yeah,
Anything
the
to
title
save a
and
dollar.
agents care very much if they have title insurance. I wouldn't say we don't care, but
Well, I mean, like, they don't, like, you're not requiring it, so
No.
to speak. And the lender's really the only one that requires it, but it is not smart.
Make it not be optional. It says optional, make it not be optional.
Yeah.
So, you know, protect yourself and your buyers.
Yeah, I wouldn't take ownership of it. I made him meet with Steve, and Steve didn't like it either, but I was like, make him sign something. All right, so we're back to our 20% down guy. Isn't that interesting? See, now this is the glitch here. All my charges went away over here. So when you start playing around with it, system doesn't like that. So if you don't know that, you calculate it and not, this also happens when you flip back and forth to FHA and when you're
You pay
trying to-
cash first, so you wouldn't have all those mortgage things.
let me go do this, see if it, blah, blah, blah.
Huh.
Just wanna see if it shows back up. Sometimes you can. Oh, well, that's just annoying. So then you start over. What was our address?
752 Dorm.
It was in Wrightstown. It was Mr. and Mrs. Byer. I think you're making a full price offer.
We are. I'm gonna go FHA.
That's very annoying. All right, so we're settling in June.
24th.
But realize this happens, and it happens when you're sitting there in front of your buyer. So the flip side is you can go up here and save it a whole bunch of times, which I do tend to do, but, so back to unpaid. And again, I put numbers in based on what seems to work for me. You have to sort of learn to figure out what numbers work for you in terms of inspections. Now, since this is Dorm Road, I'm gonna assume that this is well and septic.
It is.
What'd they pay for their water inspection?
150. Home inspection was 730.
Yeah, see, if you get bigger, sometimes your inspections cost more. I think mine adds up
We
to
did the sewer
675.
Well, yeah, the sewer,
See, I don't know that I would've put 150, I probably would've put 250.
the sewer was 350. They just had
Are they getting an attorney?
me.
There you go. All right, so my endorsement showed up, and then over here, the lender escrows are gonna fill in based on what settlement date you put in. And then the reimbursements of taxes to the seller are gonna fill in based on that settlement date that you put in. So now we're gonna hit preview report. So when I explain it, I just go, okay, look, you're purchasing at $489.9, you're putting 20% down, so you're at $97.8 for your down payment. Here's your loan amount, $391.2. We're doing 30-year conventional, 4% is your interest rate. This over here is mortgage company fees. They're not my fees, they're just general mortgage company fees, not anyone's in particular. So we've got appraisal, credit report, doc prep, underwriting, flood cert, tax, escrow service, courier wire, and then interest from the 24th of June until the beginning of July, it's your interest. So that is basically your July 1st payment if we settle in June. You will not mail out a July 1st payment. Your first payment will be due August 1st, so this is where they're collecting their interest. Title insurance, I want it reverted back to that old number. Let's see about changing that. Just want to see if it shows up if I change it. If it lets me. Yes. So this is title insurance, you're not getting an enhanced sale. Today, I would just describe it as there's been an increase, this is what the new number is. You're getting 3 endorsements to your title insurance policy because you're getting a mortgage, that's $50 a piece, it's $150. Up here is your transfer tax, it's 2% transfer tax in Bucks County. You pay 1%, the seller pays the other 1%. Recording the deed and mortgage in Doylestown so the world will know that you bought a house. Notary fee to the title clerk at settlement. Commission paid by buyer, this is at $295, we disclosed it on your buyer-tenant agency contract. Homeowner's insurance, $1,500 a year estimated, it's going to be whatever it is that you get a quote for, I'm just estimating this. Home inspection, radon, termite, also in this case, well and septic. Total of that section's $82.70. So this number, this number, this number add up to this 13. Then over here, based on our June 24th settlement date, we're going to escrow with the mortgage company 7 months worth of county and township taxes. So these two numbers, 13 months worth of school, because again, your school tax bill is going to come out July 1. You're not going to actually make a mortgage payment until August 1, so they're collecting all of the money to pay that tax bill when it comes in. Homeowners insurance, they're going to escrow maybe about 2 months worth of homeowners. So that's $7,056. Over here, county and township taxes, we're reimbursing the seller from June 24th until December 31st, 2016, because they've already paid that tax bill. And we're reimbursing school tax 7 days because they've already paid till the end of June. So total reimbursement to seller, this $866. This is where it gets fun. So we've got purchase price $489, closing costs $13, that number. Any one of those pointers? Lender escrows is that $7,056, and then reimbursements to seller. So this is the total amount it's going to cost to buy the house at $510,286. Less their mortgage amount, which then it totals it. On an FHA, that would appear different. Estimated cash need to purchase. So this is their acquisition costs. I don't know, like people like to use big words, but acquisition costs to acquire the property. So total money needed at settlement is $119,086. This is the reason I don't put seller assist on here or put their escrow check, any of that, because I want them to see what it costs to buy the house. I don't like any confusion about it. Principal and interest based on 4% is $1,867. 1 month's worth of real estate taxes, 1 month's worth of homeowners, if their homeowners cost $1,500. Now if I, and again, you don't have to do it the way I do it, it's just, I can only teach you the way I do it. So if I put my earnest deposit in here, and I put 2% seller assist, let's just say. Now I do it this way if I'm emailing it because I don't want to have to print it. So the total amount needed is in there, but it's confusing. So we've got the seller assist, $97.80. So now they need this amount to purchase, and then we've got their deposit. But the only number anybody looks at is that bottom number. So I don't like to confuse it. I generally, because I do it when I'm with them, is I handwrite that information over on the side. The flip side is, when you put the assist on here, they don't really grasp how much it is to buy the house. Because this is what it is now because they're getting that seller assist. I want them to see that that seller's paying it for them. So I take it off.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
If I'm putting the seller assist in there, does it only affect the bottom number and not the top blue number
What top blue number?
at the bottom there? Okay, that.
Well, this doesn't have assist.
Okay, if I have assist in there,
It's going to affect both of those numbers because that's what they need to purchase. My point is, it costs $119.86 to buy this house. You buy it. When that seller pays $10,000 of your closing costs, now it's $109. Okay, great. I want the buyer to see the $100. I want them to continually look at that $119 because they tend to forget, oh, I paid full price. No, you didn't pay full price. You asked for $10,000 assist. And I get that it's easier to do it on here. I just don't like to. That's all. feel free to do whatever you want. So, you know, but again, if I'm doing this and I'm at home and, you know, we're counter offering or something, I may include it in here. It depends. But when I am meeting with buyers to do pre-approval, I am showing it this way and I'm handwriting the things. And if I'm meeting with them to do an offer, I'm writing that on there by hand. That's just my way. It doesn't make it the right way. I don't know if this will let me change. All right. So we're going to have to change the price because this is too high for an FHA. So we're going to change the price to, this is going to be a deal. So we're changing the price to $380.
Wow. Think he's gonna accept the offer?
Joanne doesn't want this deal.
The other one.
Was this your listing?
Yeah, no, it's not my listing, I'm the buyer.
Let me see if it
Okay.
even lets me
Let's
do
do
that
that
number.
first.
It did drop it down, okay. Well, I want to switch it to an FHA, so if it'll let me.
Let it load.
This is the other little glitch. So now I'm switching to an FHA. Let's see what it took away this time. Oh, it actually did it. All right, so this is autofilling. Now the other thing, so now it's 3.5%. Obviously the payment's going to go up dramatically. If I do 6% assist, what were the taxes? Yeah. You're going to get this error button. But the closing costs are not meeting the minimum down payment of 3.5% set by FHA guidelines.
Oh, I hate that.
Well, honestly, when you ask for 6%, very rarely is 6% allowed. It's generally too much, unless the taxes are high. If the taxes are high based on the sale price, it may work out. The buyer has to have in their 3.5% down payment. So let me get rid of that because it didn't like it. And you don't have to do a percentage, you can do a dollar amount. Yeah, there's no. So now it's going to allow 5% assist. But again, I wouldn't put it on here because I would want to calculate everything. 19,000. Yeah, I'm sure this seller's going to love this.
Oh,
We went
yeah.
from 49, and we'd like 19 assists, and a new septic system. How much was that amount? 19,000. But see now, total closing cost is 13,644. So I feel like the buyer doesn't grasp all that. That's just my take. What I wanted to show, sorry, on an FHA, so to figure out how much the buyer has to have of their own money is this 3.5% down payment must come from the buyer's side. They can't get assist for that, that's just not allowed. So, and my other feeling is, these aren't allowed either because the buyer's paying for them directly to the inspector, so you can't really calculate that in your assist. So, if we get 13, go back, what was 5%, so 19. So, like this buyer wouldn't get all that money either, just so you know, because if they only need to have 13.6, that's not gonna jive. So, I would probably change it to 4.5%. Like, there's no point in asking for money that when it comes time for settlement, the buyer's not gonna get. So you're kind of fighting with the seller to give you this assist that you're not gonna be allowed to have. They have to have their 13.3, and I think my inspections add up to 675, so pretty much 14, if you wanna say, has to come from their side. Now we're at 15.5, maybe we can get a little more. But again, if you buffer in your costs, you're leaving money on the table. In the day of settlement, throwing in a home warranty that the seller's gonna pay for, you're not gonna be able to do it. So, I mean, I guess technically you could do it ahead of time if you thought your numbers were off. I would say ask the mortgage person how much assist they can get if you're not sure, or ask me, I'll calculate it. Now VA, total different story, they can get everything paid for. And an interesting scenario, which I did once and didn't know that existed. Generally, you think of the max VA loan is 417, same as a jumbo loan. They become jumbo loans after over 417,000 on regular conventional mortgages. A buyer could buy a house VA for 450,000. The 417,000 doesn't have a down payment, but the difference between the 417 and the 450, they put a 25% down payment on, and they can buy VA. It's fascinating. I've only done it once. But, oh, unresponsive. Awesome.
You're overloading it.
Really? I didn't think it was that
Trend is
complicated.
fragile.
I didn't think it was that complicated. Now here, oh, I am dead. I'm not spinning.
Try to go up and refresh the page, Lisa.
I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah, it's gonna.
Yeah, I'm not even.
You broke it. This is why we can't have nice things.
Well, on a VA, you can have everything paid for. Now, I still would not suggest having your inspections paid for, because if the seller pays for the inspections, the mortgage company has a right to them. So I just wouldn't get into that. Now, you will have some lenders, and I don't know that either of the two do it here, I don't know, that make this statement that say VA seller has to pay for the termite inspection. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely not true. But there are some lenders that do it that way. I would just prep your seller if you have a VA buyer on your listing and tell them you might have to pay for this. Because it's not worth arguing with the mortgage company, but it's not correct. It's their interpretation of what the rule is. That's really what it boils down to. I am really stuck, huh? Crap. All right. That's all right, I'll just pick one that I've already got now. Really? Capitals?
All caps.
Oh my gosh, why?
Probably ain't gonna take the password because you're in caps lock.
Come on, really? Why am I,
Turn
where
it
the
off.
heck is the caps lock on here?
Over here to the left by your left hand.
It doesn't light up though.
No.
All right, so if you save them, which I didn't save that one, we can go into another one. Oh, we'll go into Lowell. This may not work because I saved this. Okay, so on VA, let's see what my total. So technically, the seller could pay all these closing costs. Like I wouldn't do it as a percentage on a VA, I would just come up with the number. But I would come up with the number subtracting the inspections. But you can also, technically, somebody can pay the VA funding fee, like they could pay it at closing, that up to the closing, I don't know anybody that does it, but I mean, it could happen. Or the seller could pay it. But this Oh, they've changed this. We're missing
Mhm.
people.
Hmm?
We're missing people. National Guard used to be in here.
Yeah.
So now it's just first time use or subsequent use. So the second time they use their VA eligibility, that number goes up, that VA funding fee, and that just gets tacked on. Oh, here it is, sorry.
You can do-
There's National Guard. So now his is gonna go up. Well, maybe not. There is also differences if they're disabled.
And so you went up for first time use?
Well, that's because it was National Guard. National Guard is generally more than regular
Will it
military.
stay the same for subsequent use?
No, it goes up.
Mhm.
What was the other one?
It
53.
stayed though that way for National Guard. I think it stayed the same.
Yeah, first time.
So, I mean, there isn't really a normal, you can get anything. So they need to know, you need to know whether they've used their military status, eligibility before. Well, really, the mortgage person needs to know it. But their down payment is 0. I don't know that they've ever even had an adjustable rate on a VA. So in theory, the seller is allowed to pay all that $13,000 or whatever the actual costs turn out to be, which are never gonna be exact. But I would subtract out your inspections when you're coming up with this. So in this, I would probably say 12.5 or 12.3 or something like that in assist. The hard part with the VA ones is, if they really don't have the funds, is getting deposit from them, I find. And getting a deposit that's acceptable to the seller. Now, if we go cash, which is everyone's favorite, that whole side goes away. There are other things that you want to pull out. Like, you're not gonna have this. Like, I just go through and zero them. You may have a wire fee. I'm not sure why, but, again, technically they don't have to have a homeowner's policy and settlement. They should, but they don't have to. They still may do inspections and appraisal. If they're not doing an appraisal contingency, I would take that out. And then at the bottom, this lender escrows is gonna go away, but they still have to reimburse the seller for taxes in advance. And it will still give them a payment because it's still doing taxes. You always feel like you're missing something when you're,
How boring.
yeah. Let's see, those endorsements went away on the title policy. Now, again, I would up that based on whatever the chart says. That's,
Does it put the title insurance in there?
it did, but
So it's just saying.
that's a sale. So, Beth left, so I don't know what the number is. But I would probably switch it to, for some reason that defaulted to sale, not enhanced. If you went to the enhanced, and if you don't have a little chart in front of you, you know what? Can you grab the charts?
Yeah.
She said they're by the floor desk, like enough so everybody has one.
Yeah,
Lisa, I have a quick question too, going back to the VA, who pays for the appraisal on that? Can you have the seller?
The
pay for
seller
it?
can pay all the costs. Now, I will tell you, the seller's not gonna pay up front.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
They're not gonna pay till settlement. Yeah,
Alright,
so the buyer may have to
Basically
pay the
reimburse.
lender for that appraisal,
Okay.
and then somehow work that as a credit, yeah. Because I don't know many sellers that are gonna write a check for $500 for the buyer to get an appraisal, and then have like, but in the end, they can pay for it, yes. So I went to enhanced sale, and then what I would say if you had to guess, I'd add 100. 100 something, let's round it up to 1980, let's see how close we are when David gets back. Now, for some reason it took that out too. So you'd wanna check that. Now, that might be because I was in VA. You cannot charge your
Okay.
flat fee commission on a VA deal. On a VA buyer. Seller doesn't matter. That probably did that just because I flipped from one to the other. I don't know that you're gonna do USDA, unless you're in Jersey. Parts of Jersey have it. So I'm not gonna go over that one. But if you do, let's see, will this like it? You can do the 3% down, the PHFA. Is it thinking? Yeah. Okay. For some reason, it's letting me do this. Here we go. Waived is what you want to put. On the PHFA, there is no mortgage insurance premium. And it's a 3% down payment.
Are you keeping that price of $250 and $7?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. The number on that's $1,931.30.
1,000.
931.
All right, I guessed and added 100 something.
Wait, let me make sure I did that right. Oh, you added to that already?
I did.
Oh, okay.
19.
31.
Yeah, 1931.30.
Okay. So for PHFA, let's see how this works, if it works.
There was only one copy. She said she didn't get those ones that she ordered yet, remember?
Oh, okay.
So,
Do we have it scanned into it, like available as a scan?
she said it's already on Facebook,
Okay.
so, let's see.
All right, so this is, oh, you know what, this is wrong. PHFA, if the rate today on an FHA was 4, which it's not that high, but PHFA is probably 4 point, anybody know? Anybody do a PHFA recently? It's gonna be at least 4.5. The rate's always higher than the regular conventional or FHA rates, but it's a 3% down program with no mortgage insurance premium, so the payment ends up being cheaper. So in this, because there's no mortgage insurance premium, it's $1,763 is the total payment. You just gotta make sure you keep it out.
If you search the KWH for title insurance rate chart, it'll come right up.
Okay. Now, this PHFA only allows 3% assist, so when you're working with them, sometimes they end up not going that route. And look, it took all my fees away in this section. This is what you have to be careful of when you're actually putting it out there. That's just a glitch in the system. And generally it's because something was saved before. Now, if you want to figure out, well, I don't really want to save this, but if I wanted to, I would hit save. Now, I would probably change the name. I'm not going to save it because I definitely don't want to. I think it's my trend. Preferences. So you go to financial functions. Now my defaults are going to be different than your defaults unless you've changed them. But I up my fees, like the appraisal, I don't know what Trend puts in there, it's not even close. They used to have $375, I think, when I changed that. And I changed all these numbers. You can put what you want, but like I'm thinking it's time for me to change my inspections. I like to up them every once in a while just to kind of keep in line. Now, it does not seem to let us do the unpaid. I don't know why. That should be a change, so that it defaults to unpaid, but it won't do that. And the reason I do that, let's go back in there and pick one. asleep. Really? So let's just do this one. So if I change these, to prepaid. Oh my God. If I leave them as prepaid, which is what they have, this makes me crazy. Oh, and then it shows up big. Okay. I have no idea why it does that. It's like this. I kinda like it. But see how the bottom number, the estimated cash need to purchase, and then prepaid services, and then estimated cash need at settlement? I don't like that. That's why I like them unpaid. And again, when they're sitting with me doing this, or even if I'm doing it online and I'm sending it to them, they didn't pay it yet. So when I get towards the end, and now we're going to settlement, they go, how much do you think we're gonna need? I go back and I take those things out. Because I know that they've done it. And at that point, then I would put in, okay, they have, so this one, I guess I did because I did it online. I did the seller assist. But let's just say they have 10,000 on deposit. And I know they've paid their appraisal. And we're done inspections, so that's already paid. So now I'll take these things out. Now, they didn't pay their homeowners because they're paying that at settlement, unless they have a company who wanted it up front. But so now I'm gonna say, all right, now how much do we need? Big again. So, didn't I have solar system in?
You took it out.
You took it out and put it as a deposit.
Oh. All right, well, we'll just pretend they don't have it. And I made that prepaid.
So if I had a lender who I was
So that they didn't pay. And I'll put their 10,000 assistant. So now I'm closer to the number that they need for settlement. I mean, if you're not comfortable with it, I wouldn't give them numbers. Get it from the lender until you're comfortable. But, so that's how much between their seller assist, their deposit, now that's how much they need. But again, I wouldn't give them this until we're like a couple weeks before settlement or something like that. I wouldn't give that to them at closing, like at signing, sorry. And then I'd probably confirm, you wanna confirm if they're paying points, if they're getting a lender credit, if they're, there's all kinds of scenarios. And again, we don't seem to be talking about points now, but points are gonna come back. As the rates go up, they will definitely be back. Any other questions?
Do you find out from the lender the escrows for the taxes too?
No, I mean, I would base it off of this.
You just go from that.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's some reason that you think the taxes are off, but really the taxes are coming, I don't know who they're coming from anymore, because they all seem to be, it used to be if you had the seller, your title company ordered the taxes. It's not really the way it's happening anymore. Now it seems to be whoever represents the buyer, the bigger companies are saying, we're ordering it. So, but title is still getting them and sending them to the mortgage company. I mean, I very rarely ask the mortgage company, but that's really, with the closing disclosure, it's not like you have to give them the day before the number, they know it, they're getting it on their closing disclosure. My big thing with that is make sure your buyer sends you a copy so you get to review it, because if it's here, most likely you'll get it. If it's not, you may not. And then I'm forever asking, when I have the seller, I'm contacting the title company and the lender like 4 or 5 days prior and saying, can you send me a copy of the seller's closing disclosure? Because they just don't seem to want to send it to us. But my thing is, I want to know that it's going out so that they have their 3 days in. So I wouldn't recommend just sitting back and hoping that you get one. I would contact, like, to me, that's, put it in your calendar, you request it prior to settlement.
No, what if they tell you the buyer, they're not allowed to send it to you?
Well, they're not allowed to send you the buyer one, but if you have the seller, and then I ask the
Yeah.
question, has the buyer's closing disclosure gone out to the buyer? And they say, oh, yeah, it's all back, we're good, that's what I wanna hear.
Okay.
But there should not be any of that waiting until the last minute anymore, because they have to do that 3 days prior. I'd like to know. Like just because they have to have it out the 3 days prior doesn't mean it can't go out 7 days prior. And sometimes it does, so I start asking, that's all. It's complicated to read, I think.
I don't like when ones.
No, that's probably enough. I mean, I figure it out, but I it's taken me a while to kind of.
Yeah, I had a hard time reading it too, like trying to put their fees in, like to this form, but some of them just don't match.
Right.
Well, I still take that and compare it to my closing costs that I gave.
Mhm.
And then I try and compare like what was taken off, what wasn't, and where the changes were made if we're not close.
Mhm.
So, yeah, not loving it.
Can I ask a
No, but
question?
it's not a.
So if I have the, buyer, I'm calling who to get the seller, copy of the seller's disclosure?
Closing disclosure.
Closing disclosure.
If she has the seller, she calls
The buyers.
If I have the seller, I am contacting the title company and the mortgage company for a copy of the seller's closing disclosure.
Okay, if you have the buyer?
Because the closing disclosure for the seller is being created at the same time that the buyer's closing disclosure is being created, which the mortgage company is required to send out to their buyer. So it's a red flag to me if they can't supply it on the seller side.
So how about if I
And then I ask, did they send out their buyer's closing disclosure? I don't need to see it on the buyer's side, I don't really care. I just wanna know that it went out, got approved, it's 3 days prior to settlement.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's more of just making sure that a piece of the puzzle happened, and that's the big piece.
You know, when you have the buyer, you call the buyers.
Yeah, if it's your buyer, you have to call the buyer directly, because the mortgage company is not going to send it to you. Which is,
Question, teacher. It was Beth, that was you, right?
yes.
Okay, I was confused. We were talking about, she mentioned a $125 title fee. Was she just talking about the one that we typically do the, broker's flat fee for, which covers that cost?
She
Or
calls
is
it
this totally
closing.
different?
She was talking about a closing protection letter, and that's not really on there.
There's an area in there, it just says settlement and it's blank with a 0, it's in the preferences, is that what she's talking about, do you think? If we put that in?
I mean, you could do it,
Mhm.
where was that? Click out.
It's missing a fee.
No, I agree with you, because it's,
So it's all the way down.
Did she say there's an additional fee?
now,
under
see,
other
title
fees.
insurance costs, now, we don't have a survey, but you
You could put it in there.
You could have put it in there. My only concern is, I don't want the buyer to think they're getting a survey.
But scroll all the way down, it said other fees.
You could put it down in
Where
there.
it says settlement, that's how, see, is
Mhm.
that?
Yeah. So you could put, what was it, one?
And have other fees in there.
What did
It's a
she
different
call,
one.
Closing letter. So then we see.
So is there something new we have to do regarding title insurance to cover up in May?
yes, we went over that. So let's see, preferences have been saved. So let's see where it shows up.
I have them.
Now, I'll have to do a new one, I guess.
Well, scroll down and see if it just saved it, because your save fee should be saved.
See, I wish I could make these go to unpaid. to default to that, that there's nowhere to do that. I should call them. Where do you think it went?
Wait,
Settlement.
type- No,
Put maybe if you preview report, maybe all of a sudden it'll.
Well, it should be on here if it's gonna show
Yeah.
up on the report.
Yeah, I've had issues with that, and then entering your own fees, even when you save it and you bring it back up again, it disappears. It's weird.
That's weird. Okay, so let's do. No. And I did save that, right?